Hello and welcome to my video where I'm going to demonstrate how I deal with worn knit fabric. This is a follow-on from my previous video where I showed you how to fix seams in clothing made from a knit fabric. And you'll be able to see the seams that I fixed here. You may have noticed that to one side of the seam, the fabric is very worn and therefore weakened. In order to reinforce these areas, I'm now going to show you two options that you can try. For option 1, you're going to need a piece of fabric. This fabric needs to be very similar to the fabric that your clothing is made from. I decided to use some fleecy sweatshirt jersey, and this has the added advantage of having a fleecy lining. I'm going to be attaching this piece of fabric on the inside of the trousers, over the area of worn fabric. To fix the piece of fabric in place, you're going to need some fusible web. This material basically melts under the heat of an iron to glue two pieces of fabric together. So what you need to do is cut the piece of fabric down to size, so that it's just a little bit bigger than the area of worn fabric. You then need to cut the fusible web to the same size. Then use your scissors to cut 1 or 2 millimeters off the edge of the fusible web. This is to make it slightly smaller than the piece of fabric. We then need to use an iron to attach these pieces in place. First, put the fusible web in position, and then place the fabric on top of that. Then you need to iron this fabric sandwich in place. Make sure you use a heat setting on your iron that's appropriate to the materials that you're ironing. And if in doubt, use a low heat setting. The other thing you can do is use a press cloth or some kind of fabric to go in between the iron and the fabric. This just helps to add an extra layer of protection. You'll need to iron the fabric sandwich for about 10 seconds and then check to see if it's stuck. Keep ironing and checking until the fabric is fixed in place. And finally, I'm going to whip stitch all the way around the fabric patch. This is to further secure the patch in place, and also to prevent the edges from lifting up away from the trousers or from fraying. I'm going to be using a doubled up sewing thread again, but this time in a blue colour. Bear in mind that these stitches will be visible from the front of the trousers. With the trousers inside out, take your needle into and out of the fabric at one corner of the fabric patch to make a small stitch. Don't pull the thread all of the way through, but instead take the needle through the loop of thread at the end and then pull tight. And then we just whip stitch all the way around, making sure to keep the stitches very small and neat. So you go down into the trouser fabric and then up through the trouser fabric and the patch. Then just carry on all the way around. Before securing the end of the thread as we did before. And option 2 for reinforcing worn fabric is to simply do a pattern of stitches. In my case, I'm going to do a kind of zigzag pattern over the area of worn fabric. Remember that these stitches will be seen from the front, so try and make any pattern that you do look intentional. You can choose to be as decorative as you like. To begin with, I used a water-soluble white pencil just to mark out the approximate pattern I was going to follow. Then I secured the beginning of my thread just like I've done previously. And I did running stitch along the pattern lines. The shorter the stitches, the stronger the stitches. And also, the more of the fabric that you cover, the stronger the reinforcement will be. If you choose to do a running stitch or something similar, make sure to keep checking that the fabric is lying flat, because it can be quite easy to make the fabric ripple up and bunch up using this kind of stitch. There are all kinds of stitches you can choose to do, including back stitch or zigzag stitch, or some kind of embroidery stitch if you want to be more decorative. And here you can see the two methods side by side to compare. I personally prefer the fabric patch idea just because it's a bit more invisible and it's also comfier. But of course, it's completely up to you. I really hope you found this video useful, and thank you very much for watching.